listening to ProveText, a Glossa House podcast by Dr. T. Michael W. Halcomb, Dr. Fredrick J. Long, Dr. Mario Melendez, Dr. Jennifer Noonan, and J. M. Smith. Welcome and enjoy.
Hello and welcome to ProveText. I'm Michael Halcomb and I'm with Fred Long. This is a GrammarPoint episode. We are continuing to talk about verbs. We've been in this long march discussing verbs for quite some time now. I think this is part 22 or 23 or something like that. And on the ledger today, we have the concept of optative. So, Fred, when we're thinking about verbs in relation to the notion of optative, what are we thinking about? What's the optative?
First of all, it's known as the FTK enclasis.
And FTK enclasis.
FTK means expressing a wish. So that's what it was considered, right, in antiquity. So this is a mood of potentiality, expressing a wish. It's softer than a subjunctive. Subjunctive also kind of overlaps a little bit, but is a little bit more concrete than the optative. The optative is a bit more wishy-washy, so to speak, than the subjunctive. It occurs 68 times in the New Testament, 15 of which are in the expression may yinito, may it not be, or no way. And so Paul uses this. He asks a question, and then he has this dialogue going on with somebody, and so he'll ask these questions, or someone will ask him a question, this presumed interlocutor, and then he'll respond, may yinito, no way, may it not be. Yeah.
So he's when he's expressing the wish or the desire, may it not be, he's wishing that something would not happen or might not happen. How do we, when we encounter an optative in English, is it the same as when we encounter an optative in Greek? Do we even have optatives in English? And when we encounter it in Greek, how do we best translate it or handle it?
Well, by construction, same with the subjunctive. People will think that they can just supply a may or might and translate the subjunctive. That doesn't work at all. In fact, I can't think of a construction where I would say it needs to be translated may or might. Probably something is true like that of the optative. I'm not sure we have optatives in English. The probably closest thing would be maybe an exclamation, oh, that it would rain tomorrow. That might be an optative in Greek. So this kind of wish is common in the optative. So
I know.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No. Go ahead. I was going to go into usage.
Well, I know we've talked a lot about. I don't know if we've talked a lot about it on here, but I know you and I have talked about it quite a bit over the years when we're encountering subjunctives using like would, right? WOULD, that sort of thing, and when we were just doing meyenuto, with Paul, you had translated it may it not be. Is may a good translation, like tactic, when we're dealing with the optative, or?
No, it really depends on the construction. Sometimes a would happen. So, for example, in conditional statements, a would work well. For example, in Acts 17:27, that they would be seeking God if then indeed they would grope for him or might grope for him and find him. Those are optatives there. So would potentially find him is there or might. So it just depends on the construction. Yeah.
Okay, so the wish for them to find God, and you mentioned that it's sort of weaker than the subjunctive. Are you talking about weaker in terms of its implications, or what do you mean weaker how?
Well, in my growing understanding, I think of the moods is that they have relative salience to one another. The indicative being the most concrete, then the imperative probably being the most next concrete, then the subjunctive, then the optative. So
Gotcha.
this has to do with vividness, like how concretely the author uh, wants the audience to feel the what is happening, or to envision it. So you kind of have to understand this in relation to the use of these moods. So the optative, one of the uses of the optatives is when you have a historical narrative and then you have a subordinate clause within that historical narrative. So that subordinate clause can be put into the optative mood. And this is called optative and secondary sequence. This occurs in Luke. It's a little bit high literary Greek, but Luke does it. And so this was a customary practice. You could do this, but when it doesn't occur, when the subjunctive is retained or an indicative is retained, when many authors would flip to the optative, the indicative is used to increase vividness. So what
Mm,
that means is that when it's not used, you're decreasing vividness. So this kind of language of vividness comes from Herbert Weir Smythe's grammar, his understanding, and I think it's common. It's not just common to him. So this idea of relative salience and vividness is, I think, a very helpful category to understand. Um,
mm,
yeah, so that's one of the uses of the optative is in secondary sequence. It is used in conditional statements as well. Like there are conditions with e, the conjunction meaning if, and you can form that if, the protasis part, with an optative. Now
mm,
this is the what's called the less vivid construction. So less vivid is using e with the optative. The
mm,
more vivid is aeon with the subjunctive. The most vivid is E with the future indicative. So, by understanding these different conditional constructions in their names by classical grammarians, less vivid, more vivid, most vivid, and you have a movement from optative to subjunctive to indicative. And so
mm,
that's just an example of an understanding of the vividness, the relative salience of using one mood as opposed to another. So
mm.
you you just can't do this willy nilly. There are certain circumstances where this is can be done. One of where you have options. So one of them is conditional sentences. You can, if they're future time framed, you can use indicative, subjunctive, or optative. That's a choice. In secondary sequence, in historical narrative, in good classical Greek, you could put the subordinate clause into an optative construction. But if you don't, you're retaining vividness. You're making it more concrete.
Mm.
Um, and then you have these wish statements, which is just kind of, that's even not as envisioned as real, right? Because you're saying, I wish it were raining tomorrow. Like that's not
Yeah, yeah.
any degree of certainty. You're obviously just saying, I wish it could. So yeah, the optative is used in these ways, and yeah, so they don't have a high frequency in the New Testament, but they occur in some important places, and they're used in this idiom "me yenito," may it not be or no way. Yeah.
Hmm. Interesting. Reminds me of an old 90s hip hop song. The title of it was I Wish. And I think the rapper's name was Skilo. I don't know if you ever heard this song, but like pretty much every line of it, he's like, "I wish I was a little bit taller. I wish I was a baller. I wish I had a girl who looked good. I would call her. I wish I had a rabbit hat with a bat and a 6'4" Impala." So the whole song is like these
Built
wishes
around
that,
wishing.
yeah, they're never gonna come true. That's the implication of the song, right?
Yeah.
They're never gonna come
I
true.
think it should be called the Optative song from now on.
There you go. Yeah, if you Greek students need a good
Inspiration?
example of some optatives, there you go. Check out Skilo's "I Wish." But all right, Fred. Well, thanks for sharing, and everyone, thanks for watching. Hit that like button, the subscribe button, and best of all, the share button. All right. We hope this helps. Take care.
Interested in growing your ancient language skills but not sure where to start? Glossa House can help. From illustrated readers and short stories to lexicons and grammars, Glossa House offers a variety of resources for beginning, intermediate, and experienced ancient language learners. Head to glossahouse.com today. Glossa House, language resources for the global community.